All right, guys, so today's video is on how to use your stick. If you didn't already know. It's not the size that matters, it's how you use it. So, we're going to talk about that. First, I'm going to give these guys a little bit of a treat. So we got Bella and Big Mac here. Big Mac. Oh, there you go. They're stuck together. And we'll give one for Bella. Bella. There you go. Go girl. All right, so I get lots and lots and lots of questions about the stick that I use. Is it a magical stick? I'm not joking. I get a lot of people that do think it is quite literally magic. Okay, we get a lot of that. I get a lot of people ask me, how many sticks do I go through in a week, in a month, you know, that kind of stuff. So this video, we can go over all things having to do with the stick. As far as I know, nobody really uses the stick in the same way that I do, but it is kind of a universal tool for working with crocodilians. A lot of people do use them, but not to the extent and techniques that I do, and I'll talk about that, you know. This is just regular old broomstick. Spoiler alert, there is no magic. It is just a regular broomstick. I just get them at Lowe's or Home Depot. There's nothing special, different, weird about it. And if you guys watch, sometimes I just use a regular stick I pick up off the ground. They can be like half rotted. I did a really good one with Dino where I had like literally a rotted stick and was still able to use that to be able to control him and stop him and everything like that. I think something else that is kind of important to explain before I get into it as well is that I have a background doing a few different kinds of martial arts. I'm definitely not a pro at any of them, but I did a lot of years of karate. I did a couple years of Aikido, and then I also did just kind of like general MMA stuff. Did a lot of that in college, and then I used to also get to train with Impa, who actually fought in the UFC, and then he also just won the PFL. So that martial arts training does come in handy a lot for what I'm doing here. And obviously the MMA stuff, you don't use sticks. But in karate, we did a lot of practicing with sticks, and just having the comfortability of having a stick in my hand, like it feels like an extension of my arm when I'm using it. So for me, I am extremely comfortable using it. So I guess that's one thing that I think is kind of relative there is like, for me, it's a very natural feeling thing. And sometimes when I'm teaching somebody new, the stick is awkward for them and it feels like it kind of gets in the way for them. So I think it's an important thing for somebody is like, you do have to be comfortable handling it and using it and having it to be like an extension of your body. Because that's really how I kind of use it. You know, when I'm in here with it, it's just like an extension of my body. So I can hold it like that. I can be good right there. Keep my focus over here on him. So I really try to use it kind of in that sort of a manner. Now, as far as like starting off with using it, I don't remember when I first started using it or really kind of translating into techniques using with alligators. I think it was more like, I started doing karate when I was 16, and so I always had a stick, and I was like always swinging one around and that kind of thing. And I think they had one in like one of the gator areas I started working at first, just for like safety. And I immediately always pick it up and play with it. And then I just started kind of using it more when I'm working with the animals, you know? And funny enough, I've actually been made fun of a lot for using a stick because people are like, oh, I don't need a stick. I'm like, it's not a pissing contest, man. Like I can tell you right now, I don't need a stick either. We can literally throw this over here right now and I can hang out with them. I can handle both of them, one in each hand. I don't need it, but it is so much smarter to use a tool, and it makes it way safer for me and also just easier for the animals to understand if I do use it. And so among gator handlers, it is kind of like, I don't need a stick. You know, like people get very weird and high and mighty and like there's so much ego in this game. And so I feel like a lot of people have a lot of ego about the stick and they're like, well, I don't need it. Now, conversely though, I get a lot of people that do comment also and say, you wouldn't go in there without a stick. Yes, I would. I prefer to have it as a tool. I think it makes me a better handler and it makes me a safer handler. There's no doubt about it. But in situations where like I don't have one, obviously I can deal, you know? And so like, it's not necessarily a crutch that I absolutely have to depend on, and I can work with these guys no problem without a stick. You know, I did all the many years of alligator wrestling, no stick, just bare hands, you know? But anyways, I definitely recommend people to have one. And even when I go in with people who know like a fraction of what I do, and I'll be like, I'm gonna grab a stick, and I'm like, you want one? They're like, no, and I'm like, you should have one. And they always give me this look like, well, I don't need it. I'm like, you should have it. It's just smart. It's just a good idea, you know. Like like if things go wrong, this is really helpful to have around. And again, like it's also just really helpful just as a tool. It doesn't make you any lesser of a handler to have one. And I feel like a lot of people put themselves in more dangerous situations because they're worried about how they're going to look and how it's going to affect their ego, you know. So anyways, though, that's a whole thing. I know most people watching this are not exactly Gator wrestlers, so we don't want to waste too much time on that. But that is it's a thing. Anyway, so how do I like to use it? So first and foremost, I do like to really have it as a defensive tool for when they are getting too close to me, so I can use that to block. So like when I come up next to her, you know, if I come around in her space where she's going to want to turn at me, I can block. And so when you want to block like that, obviously you want to have it hit where the jaws hit at this angle because she can't bite it like that. So that's why it's very effective at that angle. She cannot bite it if I keep it at this angle. Now you do got to watch your top hand though. You see how she starts going up and up and up? So you got to watch your top hand because they will bite your hand on the stick. But if you use it correctly and you hit that perpendicular angle, then that is going to make it so she's not able to bite the stick. Which actually brings us to the biggest one. What if they break the stick? If you use this thing correctly, it doesn't get broken. I cannot think of a time off the top of my head that I have had an alligator break my stick. Maybe it's happened. I think the only time it's happened is their weight. So sometimes when they jump up at me, I do this number and I use it in that way, which I can explain in a minute. And I think I've had one break just because it's so dry rotted. But I don't think I've ever had a gator snap a stick with their jaws off the top of my head. I have had crocodiles though, which is a different mentality too. But anyways, and I can get to that in a second. But anyway, so using it to block like that is really, really effective. And even with just about any alligator or crocodile, I do it with crocodiles too, blocking on the side like this is super, super effective, and they're not able to really get a good grip on it. Now, he almost got a grip on it there, so I need to like reset like I just did, and that'll keep him from being able to actually bite onto it like that. So that's really good for blocking, and then I also use that for a targeting tool too. So I will have them target up against the stick like this so they know, like when I go and call her over, Bella, that's where she stops. She's going to be a little pushy, of course, as she usually is, but she knows that's the point that I want her to stop at. So I also use that as a training tool for them to target up against the stick like that, so they know that when they touch it like that, that's where I'm supposed to stop. And I use that a lot with Aquila, the Nile crocodile. You know, so that's a really effective way to use that as well. Now, well, let me back up for a second. How you use your stick depends on what you're doing and what the animal's attitude is. So right now they want food. Okay, this is feeding response behavior. It's not defensive behavior. So defensive behavior is where things do get more tricky because when they're being defensive, they are fighting for their life. They're afraid of you. And so in that case, if I let him bite the stick right now in a feeding response, he gives it a little clack and that's it. And look at him, he spits it out, because he knows that's not food. And what he wants right now is food. He did put a small hole with a tooth right there into the stick, but he wants food and he knows that's not the food, right? So he's not going to bite it full power. They're not dumb. So when they feel something like that, he's like, oh, that's not what I want. Why would I waste my energy doing a full power slam on it? So he's not going to do that. When they're defensive and they're very afraid, sometimes they will do full power. And that's what I was referencing earlier. I had a crocodile in Costa Rica that was afraid and defensive. Full power just snapped it like nothing. You know, so it depends on what reaction the animal's giving you. You can reference back to my video about like, what do you do if you get attacked by an alligator? Or what if you do if you get bit by an alligator? In those videos, I go over a lot of their different motivations to why they're biting. So that will dictate how you're using that stick. So if it is a defensive animal that is afraid, you're not going to be able to use it in the same way as what I'm doing right now with any of the kind of jaw stuff going on. Because they're going to bite it full power and they will break it defensively. But if we're doing training, we're working with animals that want food and it's just a feeding response, that's where you can use it. Like I said, blocking on the sides like that is very effective. Even when they're trying to kill me, like the crocodiles, like Cadmus, when he's flying after me, I'm able to block him on the sides like that because he does feel that it is the stick and he doesn't usually bite at full power. He has like twice, and I can get to that in a second. But usually, even in that situation where he's like legitimately trying to kill me and like full on trying to get me, he is still recognizing it's a stick. We're not going to bite that full power. Very different from a defensive animal that's fighting for its life. And in that case, it will bite full power on the stick. So again, doing training stuff, blocking on the sides works really well. Another thing that works really well, you saying something? Okay. Another thing that works really well is if you use the stick like a tongue depressor, basically. So if she's coming up and she's being pushy or something like that, one of the things that I will do is I'll put it inside of her mouth. She feels it's not food, and then I'm just annoying with it. And you see how she backs up? And I can even see that? She's like, ew, it's like a tongue depressor, and that will get her to back up and respect my space, especially if she's getting a little too close, and I don't want to do something like push her hard or anything like that. I just want to be like, hey, this is not what I want, so I'm going to put this, and that's not what you want, and that's a good way to do it. And see, that'll get her to back up. Now, again, that works in training with an animal that wants food from you. That will not work with a defensive animal. They're going to bite full power and snap it right in half. So, again, knowing how to actually use this thing is what's going to preserve this stick from being snapped by the alligator or crocodile. That also works with the crocodiles, too. Generally, also, when they first get started working with you in a stick, sometimes they will bite full power because they think it could be the food. So there's a learning curve to that. So once the animal realizes this is not food, that's where the tongue depressor method actually does work well. Also depends on how motivated the animal is, because like if it's Cadmus flying after me, you're not going to have a chance to do that. You're going to have to be doing the blocking I was talking about. Now their tongues are also sensitive though, so you never want to put pressure. You don't want to like jam it against their tongue or anything like that. That is not going to feel good for the animal, so they are sensitive. And I guess I should have led this conversation by saying the stick is a tool. It is not a weapon. We never, ever, ever hit them. Ever. I never strike them with the stick. I never do anything like that. This is a tool. It is an extension of the body again. This is not something for reprimanding them. You do not ever strike them with it. And working at many different parks over the years, you can really tell whether or not people hit them because they become what's called eye shy. So I can take this stick right now, I can move it all around him. And if you want to come over here and so you can actually see their faces and their eyes here, I can move this all around them and they're not going to close their eyes. So you see, I can do all this. He doesn't care because he's never been hit with a stick before. He's never been struck with one, so he has no fear of the stick at all. Now he's opening his mouth because it's moving around him. He wants to eat it. Let's see, you big dummy, it's grass. But yeah, so for both of them, you can see they don't blink. Now for other animals from other facilities, if you even have a stick sometimes from like 20 feet away, they start doing this. They start blinking hard and they start wincing immediately. And they kind of turn their head and they start blinking the eye towards the stick. And if you put the stick anywhere near them, they'll close both their eyes because they've been hit in the face so many times. And so that is unfortunately something you see at a lot of different facilities. As soon as there's a stick involved, they start wincing, they start closing their eyes. That's what we call eye shy. And so like with these guys, I've done videos just to be like kind of comical with them where I come in and I'm like, huh, 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 huh. Didn't blink once. Literally like, does not care. Okay. As she's hissing because I'm moving my body around a lot. Now here's a good point right there too. So I'm not worried about him getting it across like that, like I was saying, where they could break it. But when he does get it, I give it slack. Okay. So if you saw that, as soon as he did get it, let me do it again. I'll give it slack down like that. That way, if he does decide to give it a hard hit for whatever reason, he's not going to break it and he's not going to pull me down. That's important too. Sometimes people hold on to the stick like really hard. And then if the animal actually grabs it and pulls it, their body gets pulled with it. So you don't want to do that, especially in that kind of a situation. If I'm like death gripping this thing and then he bites it hard like that, I'm going to fall down. It's going to pull me forward. So you can even see like when I'm doing this, my arms are pretty much relaxed. I'm not like like brace it. I'm pretty relaxed in how I hold the stick most of the time. That way, if something like that does happen, again, I can let him go down like that. That's a good technique right there. I've done that a lot with Dino because he's so big and so powerful. He also hits really hard. And so like when he goes to bite anything, like he bites really, really hard. So that's why I have to like really let that thing down or he will snap it. Okay, so sorry, we had to reset for a second. The phone actually filled up on storage. Anyways, so what I was saying is a good practice to have when you have your stick is that, so if I'm walking on this side of him, I have the stick on the right side of me, always having it kind of pointed towards their head. So if I'm walking this way, it's going to be like this. Walking by her, I'm going to have it like that, just in case. And then if I'm going to go back the other way, then I'm going to put it in the left hand. I'm going to have it like this. And just kind of having it kind of pointed towards their head as you walk by is just a really good habit to have. That's one that I try to always keep. And then also what I can do is I can put it like relatively close to him. And then I can even turn my focus. This is dangerous, obviously. I don't want to fully give him my back or something, but he's in my peripheral. So I can still see him. I can still react to him, but I have the stick right there to block just in case you were to swing up at me. This is not something you want to do if you can avoid it, but like let's say she's coming up and I'm really focused on her and like she's the aggressor and he's just kind of chilling. I want to be like that, and that way I'm focused on her, but I'm also defending myself against him. So always having it kind of pointed at a potential threat is a really good idea to have. Alligators, obviously a little bit more chill. With crocodiles, this is something I'm really big on, especially near the water. So anytime there's crocodiles in the water, I always have the stick pointed towards the water at all times like that. Because if they come flying out and launching at you, they're going to hit the stick first. And that's kind of, you should obviously always have your focus, your vision towards that too, at minimum in your peripheral, but just as a boundary, even if she's in my peripheral right now and something happened, I'm like, oh, and I look at him, even if I can still see her out of the corner of my eye, it's good to have this right here in case she does lunge in that moment. That way she hits the stick before she hits me. And especially with an animal that's being more predatory, like when crocs I've had do that, a lot of times they're going to hit that and they're going to bite it, and then they know their cover is blown and they go back in. It works really well because they're going to hit it, they're going to feel it, it's a stick, it's not what they wanted, and a lot of times they'll hit it and then they'll retreat back into the water. So that can be very, very helpful. Also, of course, if she lunges up like that, she hits the stick, I feel it, I can react and know what's going on, So just having it always pointed at a potential threat, and especially to kind of cover your back, you're using it to watch your own back kind of thing. And that way, like I can change my focus and whatnot. And again, you don't want to turn your back on them fully unless they're far enough away. It's not like it's a big cat. Like if I'm over here, like if I turn my back for a little bit, it's not that big of a deal, but like you want to be aware of that. And then just kind of keeping that stick that way so that you know what's going on, what's coming there. Another good one is how I hold it, depending on what I'm doing. But when I'm working with like an active threat that's trying to eat me, this is usually my stance. And so that way I have like a hard back on the back of this, and I can really do strong blocks like this, and so I can really effectively block like that. You want to have both knees bent. Again, this is like basic martial arts stuff. Do not lock your knees, have both knees bent, and I want to be able to jump back and keep this stick right here. And that way, like if you see the videos where I have like Cadmus coming after me or any of the other crocodiles, they're flying after me, man, I'm like that. And that way I can effectively, with this hand back here, I can really use this hand for more forceful nature and then use the forward hand as more of a guiding nature. And that way I can effectively move it around like that. So that's a good one to have right there. Now, that's when they're being an aggressor towards you. Again, you're not hitting them. You do not want to do that. You're not hitting them. But, having it like that to be able to block effectively is really, really good to be able to do, and really important, good skill to have. Oh, Big Mac, you attacking? Are you attacking? He didn't care. Whoa, good boy. I got no food on me. I'm sorry, buddy. But anyway, so those are really, really good. Other ways that I use the stick is as, like I was saying, an extension. So if I want to move an animal, I'm going to use that by touching them. And you guys see me do this a lot. So the two critical points on a crocodilian where they will bite each other to assert dominance and territory is the base of the tail here, along the leg, this kind of area right here, and then right at the neck. See, she already doesn't like that. She's already giving me a little bit of a hiss. So when I want to move them, that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a tap right here. She's already like, I don't like that. So those are the areas where they will use on one another for more territorial things, okay? And I guess I don't, I forget that I should brag. I don't think like that usually, but like I'm reminded by other people who are like, hey, you know, other people are using your techniques and acting like it's theirs. And I'm like, I guess, you know, so like, I guess I should point out like everything I'm showing you, nobody taught me. These are all my self-taught techniques that I have figured out over the last 20 years of working with these animals. So these are all my techniques. Nobody has taught me anything I'm explaining in this video right now. See, these are all patented Chris Gillette techniques. I don't like to say that. It sounds dumb. But I do like to point out like these are all techniques that I have figured out and I do them because they work. That's the only reason why I'm doing these. These aren't things that somebody else showed me and I don't really know what I'm doing. These are all things I've come up with on my own through my own course. And I do them because they are effective and they work for me. And so like even something as simple as recognizing those as territorial points for manipulation, that's entirely my thought process. As far as I know, nobody else has ever done that or come up with that. So, and people tell me I need to say this kind of stuff for my own whatever recognition. I don't really care that much. But it is good to point out like, why do I do the things that I do? I do them because they work. Because I have seen working at other facilities when somebody does something, and I can't think of an example, a good one off the top of my head, but I'm like, why do you do that? And they're like, oh, I don't know. So-and-so taught me that. And I'm like, so what does it do? I don't know. It's just what they taught me. So that's an important thing. Like, I don't want to be showing you something that somebody else showed me and I'm just doing it because I don't know why, because they said so. So that's a good point, is to explain that these are things that I do because I know that they work and I came up with them because they work. It's not just something silly that somebody else said, which is a big one that we see in martial arts a lot, you know, so that's why it's a good one. Anyways, though, this territorial thing is pretty effective. So when you want to do that, what I'll do is I will touch right here and I'm going to kind of nudge her right there. And literally I just nudge her. You see how she's immediately going to move? So those are the points. And then again, right at the neck over here, same kind of deal. So I'm just going to give nudges. I'm not really trying to move them right now. I guess I could get her to go this way just for the sake of an example. So I'm going to come over here on this side of her and give her that little bit of a nudge. And you hear her, so she's giving me a little purr sound. So same thing, I'm going to touch around the leg, and it's just like in the base of the tail right here. And so that's going to effectively get her to move forward some. Again, you don't have to hit them, you don't have to strike them. Some of them are definitely more stubborn than others. Big Mac can be very stubborn. Stallone, on the other hand, is extremely dramatic and sensitive. Like, you touch him at all, man, he's flying out of the way. So they can be more stubborn than others. But again, it's not a beating, it's not hitting them, it's a nudge. And then what I'll also do too, sometimes I'll just put it on them like that, and then I'll hit the other end of it and just do that. And that's kind of a repetitive, you see, and that gets her to get up and move. And she's not even being defensive towards me, that just gets her to get up and move out of the way, because that is how another alligator would tell her, like, hey, get out of my space. And so they're going to bite like that. And when they do bite each other like that, usually, depending on how motivated they are, of course, they don't bite very hard. It is literally like, get out of my space. And so that's why it's very effective, and you don't have to use that much force or be rough on them or anything. It's just a little bit of a nudging like that. It can be very, very effective for them. Another one that I do too, that I was talking about earlier, where I have had the stick break, is where they lunge up and I will use it to catch them underneath. So Bella, if she comes up like that, I'll get underneath like this and use that to push them. And so that's a pretty effective push. I'm not going to really do it to her. He's right there. But that can be very effective. And especially when, like, if I'm putting myself in a situation where, like, she might try me like that and I'm leaning in, that way I can be like, nope, access denied. You know, and so that can be a pretty effective way. And you have a lot of grounded force with the stick from that angle. So that does work really, really well to be able to do that. Now, again, if it's a heavy enough animal and your stick is old, that's the only time I think I've ever had one break like that. And I'll tell you the story just really quick about a crocodile. So there's an American crocodile in Costa Rica, and we were cleaning the pond, and so the whole enclosure was like hilly, and then the pond was at the lowest point. So we drained it, no water. So the croc went up into the shade, which is up on a hill. And then once we got in there, oh, he's going to yawn. Oh, look at him. Here, come close. You going to yawn? Oh, look at that. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. How about that? So you can actually see the glottis move down when he did that. That's really, really cool. So they yawn just like we do. But anyway, so this crocodile, it went up into the shade, which was up the hill to get out of the pond that was now empty of water. So it's hot, it goes up there. As soon as we come in the enclosure though, the animal's now afraid. And so what do afraid crocodilians do? They try to hide in the water. Where is water normally? The water is normally at the lowest point. Even if this animal did not know this enclosure, it's still going to go to the lowest point because that's the most likely area where there is water. So once it's afraid, it wants to get back down into the empty pond because that's most likely to have water, makes them feel the safest, right? So I am trying to stop it from getting down in there. And this is like maybe like a 9-foot croc, but being defensive, being afraid. And so it comes over at me like that. And so I'm immediately trying to block it, but it's kind of up. So I'm more like this, like it's like face level almost because it's on the hill. And I go to try to block it like that, you know, and block the jaws. And that thing just grabs the stick and tosses it. I mean, like the torque they have, like grabs it and it just snaps it like a toothpick. And this was not a broomstick. This is a tree I had cut down for that purpose that day. So it was like that thick. It wasn't a regular old broomstick. It was a thick branch, thicker than your wrist, also stronger. And it grabbed it and just snapped it like nothing and then tossed that piece and immediately came right back at me. And I blocked it again, snapped another big portion right off of it, chucked it, came right back at me again, blocked it again, did the same thing, snapped it again, and then my stick just went from, it was like a 7-foot stick, so it was bigger than this one. It was like one of these, and it just brought me down to about this much left. And the croc is at like face level with his jaws right there, and it was either leap backwards out of the way and hope for the best, or try to bluff. And so I chose to bluff him, and I literally just bowed up at it like that, like bigger and in its face, and it backed down from me. And it was like super gnarly situation, really, really close call. But it took that stick from like up here to like just a little bit left, and within like maybe 2 seconds, so fast with that snapping and the torque action of how it did that. Like if it got your hand, it would have ripped your hand off and tossed it 50 feet that way before you realized your hand wasn't connected to your body anymore. Just insane. So that was a super gnarly one, but that is again a totally different behavior because that animal was being defensive, it was afraid, and so that's its motivation as it's fighting me like that, you know. So it's a very, very different kind of motivation for the animal. I think that covers most of the stuff with the stick. It's not magic. Again, it's just a regular stick. Each one of these sticks will probably last me at least like 2 or 3 years because of how I use them, knowing how to properly use them. And then eventually it just starts to dry rot. That's usually the death of a stick as it starts to dry rot away. I do have some old ones, and Gabby actually brought up a point if I should see if some people would want one of the old sticks that is just littered full of alligator and crocodile teeth holes and marks. I think some kids would really like that as a cool stick, you know? So maybe, you know, we'll do a little raffle for some of the older ones or something like that. I think that might be a cool one for some kids, because I know when I was a kid, I would have wanted a stick with alligator tooth holes in it. It'd be pretty cool, you know? I think that covers just about everything I can think of with the stick. Oh, on the magic thing, it's not magic, regular stick. Also, I do not have magical abilities. I don't know why I have to say this, but I have had a lot of comments of people who think that the stick is magic. My necklace, people think my necklace is magic and protects. There is no such thing as magic, folks, okay? I literally work for David Blaine, okay? There is illusion. There is no real voodoo, that stuff's not real, okay? So I just have to say that because you wouldn't believe a surprisingly high amount of adult people think that I have a magic stick or a magic necklace or some other craziness. That's not a thing, okay? But yeah, I think that covers everything I can think of with the stick. So if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments, let me know, and hope you enjoy the video.